Hi, and welcome to another live episode of Marketplace Masters, brought to you by Merchant Spring, the leading marketplace analytics platform for Amazon agencies and vendors. Marketplace Masters strives to go deeper into the challenges that agencies face to lift e-commerce and marketplace performance via practical actions and insights, and that includes expansion. I'm your host, Paul Sonneveld, and today we're going to talk about how you can expand your client revenue to Zalando, the leading online fashion marketplace in Europe. I've invited Steven Van Den Ouweland to join us and share his valuable expertise and perspectives on how to best achieve this. Allow me to introduce him to you. Steven is the CEO and founder of Distrilink, an esteemed e-commerce agency that connects brands, stores, and distributors to the largest European online marketplaces. With Steven's teams, you can have beautiful listings and efficient advertising, logistics, and customer service without requiring any in-house IT knowledge or tools. Thank you so much, Steven, for being on the show today.
Thank you, Paul, for inviting me.
So today we're talking about Zalando. Now, I live mainly in an Amazon world, a little bit of Walmart, Shopify, and a whole bunch of other marketplaces, but Zalando is perhaps not as well known to our audience. So let's just start right there. What is Zalando, and how did Zalando even come about?
So Zalando is actually one of the biggest European marketplaces. It has over 51 million consumers, generates around 10 billion euros in revenue, and is represented in 25 different countries in Europe. It's by far the biggest online marketplace for fashion. To put it a bit in perspective, because you're coming from Amazon country, Zalando has a share of market of around 10%, while Amazon has only 5% of the market in fashion. So if you can be successful in fashion on Zalando, then the profit can be twice as high as being the same on Amazon. What's also mentioned in, let's say, the same piece of breath is About You. About You is another, let's say, like a European marketplace that has only 1% of share of market. So if you want to be somewhere as a fashion brand in Europe, you need to be on Zalando.
Zalando. So am I hearing that? So am I hearing that right? So Zalando actually has a 10% share of fashion and apparel.
Yeah.
That is share of e-commerce. I'm assuming. Amazon is actually a distant second at 5%.
Yeah.
And then the third, was it About You? I just want to make sure I got the name right.
You come in a kind of, let's say, like a cluttered ranking of a lot of, let's say, smaller marketplaces with only 1 or 2% share of market.
Yeah. So very, very niche in terms of the apparel space. So what countries are we talking about here? Obviously, we're talking Europe, but what are the most prevalent countries when it comes to Zalando?
Zalando is from origin, it's a German marketplace, and that's also where they have built the foundations. When Zalando did its expansions in 2010, it was first to, let's say, like German-speaking languages like Austria, like Switzerland. As of 2010, they entered into the Netherlands, which was then the first non-German country that they are approached. And currently, they are represented in, let's say, the majority of Western Europe. That means the countries like Sweden, but also Belgium, Spain, Finland, Poland, Czech Republic, and so on and so on. So I think they started in 2008, and then they grow, let's say, like substantially over the courses of the years. With I think the latest countries that have been added in 2022. In 2022 was Hungary and Romania. So more and more making the step from Western Europe into also Eastern Europe. For the time being, the focus on Zalando is on Europe only.
And solely on apparel and fashion. Are they branching out into any other adjacent categories like health and beauty or
Yes,
sort of fashion accessories? Is there any sort of attempts there?
So they started actually actually they copy pasted back in the days. Not know if you still remember this name, like Zappos, which was a famous
Yes. Yeah.
online marketplace from the United States, which was actually a shoe retailer back in the days. And that's how Zalando approached it in the same way in 2008. That they said, "Hey, this is a kind of, let's say, like white space in Europe. Let's build also something similar." And that's how they actually started as, let's say, an online shoe store. And then throughout the years, they expanded more into fashion and apparel. Also, let's say, then adding, I think, like 2 years ago, personal care towards their portfolio. And now they're also recently added toys to it. So they stay really, let's say, like stick to the core that it's around, let's say, like shoes and fashion, but then gradually looking for the boundaries of the categories, so it still makes fits, so it still makes sense to have those categories in under their umbrella.
Yeah.
um, because they have also learned, let's say, that approaching adjacent categories, it's not so easy. You need to find the right brands, but you also need to find the consumers, and it goes a little bit hand in hand. Um, so they do it, let's say, like at a slower pace than expanding into new countries, but still they're looking, let's say, like for new opportunities for growth.
So let's talk a little bit about the differences between Zalando and the others. I know you've mentioned a few already, but
Yeah,
maybe if we can break it into two parts. The differences from a consumer point of view, if you're shopping for fashion versus selling. So maybe, and of course, when I say other marketplaces, most of us are thinking Amazon. That's just our natural bias.
yeah.
So let's start from the seller point of view. If I'm a buyer on Zalando, what are the key differences I'm going to find in terms of the proposition buying something from Zalando versus Amazon?
I think where that is, if you mean like as a seller, you mean like from a company perspective. I think the biggest difference is the fact that Zalando is a curated marketplace. So that means that you cannot easily access the marketplace without going through a very tough KYC procedure, because Zalando, they want to guarantee a certain quality of the brands that they can offer on their marketplace, and as a consequence, they don't allow everybody to come in on the platform. Uh, Even that they are currently doing an exercise where they are cutting brands from the platform. If the brand doesn't meet their, let's say, like ethical, sustainable, and let's say qualitative requirements, they actually send out, let's say, now currently letters to brands that they will stop the collaboration within a few months time. So I think that's, let's say, where it's the biggest difference as a seller on the Zalando marketplace, is that you are, let's say, part of a selected group of brands that has, let's say, like uh, the right qualitative requirements that's in line with what Zalando wants to offer to its consumers. And I think also, like, prices should be okay from a medium to premium, not uber premium, not too cheap. So where you, let's say, like, can offer to your consumers as Zalando, as being Zalando, a certain perception of quality towards your consumers. That's one thing. Also, as a seller, and that's it's not so easy, let's say, to get your products properly uploaded. It takes a lot of, like, tender love and care to get your products listed in the right quality. And very important here is the first time right principle. If it doesn't get uploaded the first time right, then it takes a lot of work and a lot of cases, making of cases, like most of you know, like you are doing on Amazon, to get the, let's say, the listings rechecked, reevaluated, so it's in line with your requirements. So on the one side, it makes it also a pretty intensive marketplace if you want to be successful there.
So, in terms of success, actually, and I want to come back to the onboarding and some of those other questions there, because I think there's a lot of detail we can explore. But
Yeah,
I want to go back to that one of the first points actually you made in terms of the difference. You're saying, you mentioned the word profitability, right?
yeah,
And if I was a betting man, I would say a lot of people tuning in today is because their profitability on Amazon is really struggling.
yeah,
So they're looking for other channels. Now, Zalando is not going to be the right answer if you're operating in the electronics or tech space. It's not a good category fit. But assuming that it is a good category fit in terms of the apparel and the right architecture in terms of your brands, explain to me a little bit more what's inherent about the Zalando marketplace that means profitability and profitability levels tend to be better than some other alternatives.
I think if you look, let's say, like purely the commission, it's pretty similar like what you see on Amazon. Also, Zalando applies, roughly speaking, a 15% commission on the retail price, including VAT. What's a big difference with Amazon is the pay-per-click, or let's say the sponsored products. For Zalando, it's also, let's say, like an important driver to bring visibility to the products on the platform, but it's not like in the same extent as on Amazon, but it's also for Amazon itself an important profit driver. For Zalando, it's more, let's say, like a tool that you can offer to your sellers that can help them to become more successful on Zalando. As a consequence, the pay-per-click is cheaper on a Zalando, for example, than on an Amazon. Also because the competition is less intense on, let's say, one ASIN or one AIN code versus on Amazon. Given it's a curated marketplace, you don't have, let's say, this intense price competition to win the buy box. Normally, by accident, you already have, let's say, have the buy box as it's being covered in the KYC procedure and the brand's approval procedure. So that, let's say, that helps that the playing field is much cleaner than the one on Amazon, and as a consequence, you don't need to go into ongoing price fights that actually erodes your margin to the bottom, and that actually helps nobody to win. That's one thing. Second thing is also in the case of Zalando, the delivery timings are 2 to 4 days. While in Amazon, if you want to be really successful, you need almost to deliver the next day. Yeah, the longer your delivery timings, also, let's say, the cheaper you can organize your logistics, because you will be able to bundle it in a smarter way, or to make use of different formulas so that you don't need to pay so much for your transport. What makes
so
Zalando...
if I can just pause, I just want to go back before we get into logistics. I want to just talk about pricing a little bit more, or ask you a follow-up question. Because what I'm hearing is, so commission roughly the same, advertising significantly low because you're on a curated marketplace. Once you're in, the competition is less. You can run your own race. The CPCs are not as high at all in terms of Amazon. You mentioned pricing as well. Is it, in your experience, can brands charge a premium on Zalando for the same product versus Amazon? Are they able to command a higher price on the Zalando platform versus Amazon, or is that still hard to do? I know there's an aspect of competition is significantly less, but I'm also thinking about the cross-channel comparison.
Zalando offers a seeming of a flawless, a perfect consumer experience, with also some extra benefits for the consumer. Like, for example, you have the ability to return your products the first 100 days, while I believe on Amazon it's only 30 days. So consumers, let's say, when they are on the platform, they are really in a buying mode often. And Zalando is really good, let's say, in convincing people to buy the products because of the way how the platform has been set up, because of the value that they, or let's say the requirements that they give to content, to make sure that packages are of the right quality, and so on and so on. That also means that even if you ask a few euros extra on a product, it goes through. Like consumers don't notice. They are not, let's say, comparing with different sellers. They're only comparing with, let's say, similar brands on the platform at a similar, let's say, price level. But they are not comparing with brands which are with sellers who have the same product but a cheaper price. And given that the consumer is bought in the right atmosphere, the consumer has, let's say, like the risk for the consumer to buy your products is lower. You're able, let's say, to charge a few euros extra per products if you do it in a smart way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That a lot of brands that must be music to their ears, right? Just to get a little bit more price realization and focus a little bit more on the convenience and the shopping experience to try and drive their price up. Very interesting. Now let's go back to, you started talking about logistics and warehousing and all of that. Obviously, on the Amazon side, FBA, it's really hard to even play the Amazon game without being part of the FBA network or the Pan-European Fulfillment Network, whatever that looks like in Europe. I'm just conscious that Zalando is also multi-country as well in Europe. How does that work? How does the logistics work? Is it merchant fulfilled by them? What are the models?
It's actually a copy-paste of Amazon. So in that perspective, that you have fulfilled by Zalando, you have fulfilled by merchant, and it's a little bit, let's say, like depending on your logistical strategy, if you want to make use of that platform or not. If you don't want to, if you want to make use of the platform, then it's like sending your stock to FBA. You make sure that the products are, let's say, that you send the list of products up front. You send your shipment, and then Zalando books in the stock on their platform, and then it starts shipping, let's say, to all the European countries from their different warehouses that they have in Europe. If you want to do it yourself, that there are a few requirements, and that means that you need to be able to include a return label in every box that you send, and the return label needs to be on paper. As also, you are, let's say, restricted to a few European carriers only, and that's a little bit to make sure that the level of the last mile carrier has been guaranteed. And I think that's a little bit a big difference with Amazon. In Amazon, you don't have those requirements if you do the fulfillment yourself. And then, roughly speaking, or generally speaking, Amazon applies, let's say, like a delivery within 24 hours or a very fast one. If you want to beat the algorithm on Zalando, it's for everybody. It's between 2 and 4 days. So that gives a little bit more, let's say, like flexibility to prepare and send your products to the consumers if you want to do it yourself.
Yep. What about the free returns or the returns process? I mean, fashion marketplaces can look really attractive at the top line price realization, but then the returns are significantly higher. What do you see when it comes to Zalando in terms of the returns process and how it impacts the economics for the seller?
That's one of, let's say, the downsides of Zalando. It's the return rate. You see, like Zalando doesn't communicate any official numbers around this, probably because the number is too high. But you should be aware that the return rate will be somewhere between 30 and 50%. And you often already see it, like a consumer is placing an order in a size L and a size M, and you already know, like, one of the two will come back, or it's a green one and a yellow one, so you know, okay, already one of those two will be returned, and that's a problem. Zalando is really aware about that problem because returns and sustainability do not go hand in hand. And actually, Zalando wants to create a perception that they are a sustainable marketplace. So they're making significant investments in, let's say, like improving the return process. So, on the one hand, that they can stick to the fact that the consumer has the right to return the product within 100 days. On the other hand, also to reduce returns as much as possible, and also to stop the misabuse that consumers are often doing. For example, what you often see is like somebody needs to go to a wedding, then they buy something on Zalando, wear it for one time, take a few nice pictures when they are at the wedding, and then send it back without any costs. Now, currently, Zalando is adding major tax into the products so that you can't, let's say, like wear the product to, let's say, social events. And that's really, let's say, a way how they can reduce the returns. On the other hand, also on the content side, they are increasing their requirements to make sure that the consumer has the best possible impression of the product before actually buying it. And that means making sure there is a size table, making sure your pictures are of the right quality, and you can really zoom in on the pictures, and so on and so on. As also last piece, they're also more and more investing into new technologies like augmented reality, so that you can create a kind of virtual fitting room, or setting up a virtual shopping assistant that can help you with some questions in order to reduce the returns.
Sounds like at least they're taking it very seriously. And I think
Yes.
your point around, these high level returns are not really consistent with the ethos of sustainability and all of that.
Yeah.
In terms of when products are returned, are any of them restocked, or are they actually destroyed or donated, or what happens to returns?
That's a bit depending on the category. If, for example, the category is around boxer shorts, then from a hygienic perspective, it's difficult to restock the products if the packaging has been opened and the consumer has worn them. And then those products will be destroyed or given away. If the product is still if it's a different type of product and still in a very good shape, then the product can be restocked. But that's, let's say, a case by case assessment that needs to be done by the merchant if they do their own fulfillment. If it's in the case of Zalando, then they apply a few, let's say, like a category standards to restock or not restock the products. And then the products that are no longer sellable anymore, they will be, let's say, like consolidated and then sent back into one batch to you as a seller. And then it's up to you to decide what you want to do with the returns.
Yeah, whether you donate it or do something with it. Yeah,
Voilà.
makes sense. Makes sense. In terms of the actual content, I mean, we sort of skipped over this before. I mean, but creating your product pages, your point around having to get it right first time. If you think about existing content, so let's say I've spent a lot of money in optimizing my Amazon content in terms of images, bullet points, description. How much of that can I take for the product page on Zalando versus how much am I going to either have to recreate or optimize? What's the level of rework or investment that you to achieve best practice? Obviously, sometimes this is what you can get away with versus what would really make you successful.
In the case of Amazon has a completely different look and feel than Zalando. While on Amazon, everybody has a little bit, let's say, the freedom to set up, let's say, their own listings with their own ideas around how a title should be structured, how the picture should look like. I think Amazon is very liberate to different types of pack shots and so on. In some cases, you can even add some text on photos. Zalando is completely the opposite. So everything is very uniform. All the pack shots are, let's say, in the same type of look and feel, which gives a certain, let's say, like calmness to the platform, because everything is very structured and yeah, in the same kind of visual identity. So pack shots often needs to be optimized, because the background should be in a different color than the one, for example, on Amazon. On the text side, etc., Zalando is very limited. So there is not much work that needs to be redone, given the fact that there is just not much work that needs to be done in any case. So here you can go, let's say, like pretty fast. Really important is that you just follow very precisely the structure of how a Zalando title should look like, and that you make sure that there is a size table foreseen, and that your pack shots are in line with the Zalando requirements, which are very strict. And it often happens that Zalando, let's say, like cancels your product, for example, because a pack shot or a photo is not in line with their requirements.
Yeah, so it sounds like they have their very their own particular style guide, particularly
Yeah.
when it comes to photography in terms of the angles, the background, how it's. So there's some investment there, I guess, that's required.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of the people that listen to this podcast in particular are other agencies who may be operating the fashion business, who are thinking about Zalando.
Yeah.
And they're looking at their existing client portfolio, and they're probably thinking about, hey, which of our clients would be good candidates for Zalando? You already mentioned this at a high level in terms of brand and in the right tier. You would have seen lots of clients wanting to go on Zalando, and I suspect you can look at a particular application and probably give a pretty good estimate as to whether they're going to be successful or not. What is it that, and obviously, I just want to be clear that you're not the one making the decisions as to whether people go on the platform or not, but you have lots of experience. What are the tick boxes that you think Zalando is looking for when it comes to brands, particularly kind of right now in terms of where they're heading and maybe any gaps they're looking to fill as well?
Yeah. Currently, they are very strict because the KYC procedure is very intense. So that also means that people from the Zalando side needs to be involved in order to go through all the documentation and to make sure everything is rightfully applied. If you want to be successful currently on Zalando and you want to apply as a new brand, then the one thing that comes to mind is having this thing around sustainability. If it's because your ingredients are sustainable, if it's because you are donating a lot of money to a good cause or whatever, but having, let's say, this thing around being a force for good is super crucial for Zalando, as well as having a kind of good value for money, but not being too cheap, not being too expensive, as well as already having a kind of brand awareness. If you are a brand starting from scratch and you think, hey, Zalando will help me on the one hand with building my brand awareness, as also serving as a purchase channel, then probably Zalando will not accept your application.
Yeah,
you need to already have a certain level of success in other marketplaces or in the offline retail world.
Ideally, you want people to be looking for your products on Zalando already and
Voila.
sort of meet that need. Yeah.
And probably they also look, let's say, like in the search terms, have people already searched after this product and they couldn't find it. It's a white spot in our assortment. Okay, yes, we accept this brand. If nobody has ever searched for it, probably they will not accept your application.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So we're close to being out of time, but I wanted to ask you one final question, which was, you've been at Zalando for a number of years, lots of clients you've brought onto that platform. If you were to create two lists, the list of the biggest mistakes, and please don't repeat these, versus the things that have really worked for you, what are some of the things that you would put under each category? The watch outs and the success stories. What comes to mind? I'm sure it's a whole lot of varied experiences.
The first one is so Zalando every season they're cleaning up their assortment. And the one good tip I can give to all the potential sellers on the platform is make sure you tag your products as all season. Because if you're tagged as winter season or a summer season, you are put offline at some point without any notification, and then you need to retag your assortment again, which will take a few weeks before you're back online. Sometimes it's even been cancelled, unless if you do a promotion. So it's a very time intensive process to do all the retagging, which could be prevented from the beginning if you would have tagged your products as being all season. That's, I think, it's one of the hardest learnings that we had on Zalando. And what's definitely a big winner is all the seasonal events of Zalando. There is so much traffic on the marketplace during the mid-season sales, during, let's say, the October sales, and so on and so on. You need to participate on those events. And you can already do that with a kind of a very minimal promo. Sometimes even a promo of 3% or 5% is already sufficient. You have a strike-through strike-through price, so consumers perceive you, let's say, as a promotion, and it doesn't cost you what we say, like in Flemish, an arm and a leg. So it's a very, let's say, like efficient way to generate a lot of sales.
Such great practical insights. I love those. Make sure you tag your products right. Make sure you take advantage of the hard work that Zalando puts in those seasonal events and really ride those waves. That's really fantastic. Thank you so much, Steven. I'm looking at the clock here, and we've gone past the half an hour, and I want to be conscious of everyone's time. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate the knowledge you brought to the table and just opening our eyes to the other opportunities that are out there, especially around Zalando and how, particularly for those brands operating in the apparel space, what to think about, how they can extract more profitability, but also some of the watch outs as well. So thank you so much. I'm sure there might be some viewers that are listening to this either live or on demand later that would love to get in touch with you and explore some of this topic further. What's the best way to do that?
The easiest way is just to send an email to steven@distrilink.be, and your mail automatically comes into my mailbox. So
excellent. I'm just going to put it on the screen here so people have it. Your spam filters will be working very hard for the next week or so. But yeah,
I hope. Yeah.
I know you guys cover lots of other marketplaces in Europe as well. So it's not just Zalando and Amazon. I just wanted to be clear around that. But yeah, everyone, if you want to get in touch with Steven, there his email address. All right. On that note, I'd love to wrap up. Steven, thank you so much for coming on the show. I look forward to our next episode together, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. That was it for today's episode of Marketplace Masters, talking about how to expand your client revenue and profitability to other marketplaces, namely Zalando. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time. Bye.